This is another episode of Fire Breathing Rob. Please like and subscribe to our videos. I was just talking to this guy before we got on here. We were talking about reminiscing a little bit. We're going to reminisce more as the interview goes on about Universal and all the great rides they used to have at Universal Studios. And I know, and I'm going to introduce him in just a second, all the memories he's had there throughout the years. This is Johnny Awesome. You can look for him on YouTube, Johnny Awesome on YouTube. And Johnny, before we even get into it, thanks for coming on. I want to tell everybody this. Johnny holds the record for most rides on ET with 56 times in one day, which is impressive for any ride. But not only that, you also, and we'll go deeper as the interview goes on into your day there when this happened, you didn't just go on ET all day. You actually went on quite a few other rides. So I think that you did that so many times in one day and also got to go on quite a few other rides in the park. So, Johnny Awesome, thanks so much for coming on Fire Breathing Rob. Greatly appreciate this.
Thanks for having me.
You love the magic of Disney, and we'll start the topic with this. Going to Universal in the 90s and going into the 2000s with Confrontation, Jaws, E.T., of course, Twister, Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, Hanna-Barbera, Beetlejuice, and the Earthquake, too. And the list goes on and on. I really loved going to that park, and what they did to it was really terrible. But I want to get into the first question. Johnny, let's talk about this. Do you remember your first time at Universal Orlando?
Yeah, I do, actually. It was in 2002. I specifically remember it because they were doing the 20th anniversary re-releases for E.T. So they had the big banners up, and they were selling all the 20th anniversary merchandise. And I still remember riding E.T. I remember riding Jaws and being kind of terrified of it. Earthquake was the one I was always terrified of. I couldn't handle that. It was too much happening at the same time. Back to the Future, definitely remember. My parents said I rode Confrontation, but I don't remember riding Confrontation. But I still love the ride. I mean, well, you can't see it, but behind me I actually have one of the original sketches from the design team. But yeah, I definitely remember my first time at Universal, and I fell in love with it. And I always, every time we go to Orlando, I always wanted to go to Universal. I always preferred it over Disney. I kind of grew out of Disney really quickly. And like I always preferred E.T. over Mickey Mouse, so I'd be like, let's go to Universal. I still would go to Disney on occasion, but it was mostly I was like, I want to go to Universal.
What became your fascination with Universal instead of Disney?
Well, I think with Universal, it was more, how do I say it, like gritty realism almost. Like, you know, in Disney, it's all happy-go-lucky. You have the princesses and Buzz Lightyear and all of that. And, you know, in Universal, you have Jaws, you have King Kong, you have, you know, it's much more realistic, sort of. I don't know if it's not as cartoonish sort of a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's much more gritty. So, and then obviously you have E.T., which is sci-fi, fantasy, but the ride kind of starts off gritty. I mean, the FBI's are after you. So, you know, it kind of starts off kind of grim and then ends with a happy ending, but it's just less cartoonish. It's a little bit more realistic, and I guess I kind of gravitated towards that.
When did your fascination start with E.T.? Because it came out, correct me if I'm wrong, before you were even born.
Yeah, it came out in 1982. I was born in 1999, so way after. But my fascination with E.T., and I think just the fascination with movies in general, actually came after the first time I went to Universal. Like I said, they had just done the 20th anniversary, you know, 2002, that was the year, the 20th anniversary of E.T. They re-released it into theaters. And one of the things my dad got me was the actual DVD. I actually have, well, I had it here. It was the 2-disc set. It was the remastered one and the original version of the movie. And it had a bunch of behind the scenes and, you know, like a documentary on making the movie. And I would just sit there and go through everything, all the pictures, the behind the scenes, everything. And I would just sit there and I'd watch the movie over and over again. I think E.T. is one of those movies that I just know by heart. Like, I don't really know too many movies by heart. Probably just E.T. and
Right.
Rocky maybe, but yeah, that's where that fascination started, was after that first time at Universal. I got that 20th anniversary DVD, and I just started watching the movie over and over and over again.
What made you want to go on the ride 56 times in one day? I mean, that's really impressive.
Well, every time I'd ride ET, like before before I did that, I would only go to Universal like maybe every few years, because
Okay.
the theme parks were expensive,
Yeah.
and my parents couldn't afford taking a 4-hour drive every single time.
Right.
Like, I go for my birthday and stuff like that, so every time I got to ride it, it was special. And now, well, the first time I went since like 2012, I had won a contest to stay at the Gaylord Palms, which is a beautiful hotel in Orlando. And I was supposed to go for my birthday, but I told them, hey, since we won it for a Christmas contest, it was for the ice show. I was like, well, let's just kill two birds with one stone. We're in Orlando, I might as well go. So I went on ET, and my love for that ride kind of came back. It reminded
Now, what
me.
year was this, Johnny?
This was the year before I actually did the 56 times. So it was December, and then I went back in July.
Okay.
And my love for that ride actually, it brought it back. And I did a game review on the ride, or a game review on one of the games. Actually, Universal let me use the ride, like footage of the ride, which is pretty cool. So I was just like, I think it was actually the night before. I was like, I love ET so much, and I was looking through YouTube, and a YouTuber named World of Micah, he wrote it 15 times, and I'm like 15. I'm like, that's I can beat that. I'm like, I could probably do 30. I'm like, because I love that ride so much. So I get there, and I'm in my Marty McFly get up, with the vest.
Right.
I hadn't been back since December, and a cast member who is now one of my closest friends. She goes, hey, McFly. I'm like, hey, what's up? She's like, oh, come here. So she lets me through the child swap door.
Yeah.
And goes, you see that door right there? It's like, how they have the big cave and then that black door. She's like, you could use that door. I'm like, all right, cool. So I go in, I ride, and I come back, and I get back in line like a regular person. And she goes, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm watching Spielberg on the monitor. And she's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm riding again. She goes, no, get over here. Come here. So she grabs me and takes me over the door. She's like, you're going for that record, right? Because I told him about it, and I'm like, yeah. It's like, you use that door as many times as you need to today. I don't care what they tell you. Use it as many times as you want. I'm like, all right then. So that door would, like, it was the VIP door, so it would bump you to the front of the line every time. But I mean, ET never really has a line unless it's backed up. So I mean, I guess they're like, just let them use it. But yeah, so, and I'm like, well, now 30 is like, chump change to me. I could probably ride this 100 times if I wanted to, if I'm getting bumped to the front of the line every time. So, I rode it, I think it was 30 times, and then I went and I wanted to ride everything else because I hadn't had the chance to ride Fast and Furious, and I hadn't had the chance to ride a few other things. So I went there, I rode the rest of the stuff at Universal Studios, and I came back and finished it off for the night. I probably could have done it 60 times because I don't think I rode it all the way to closing. But yeah, I was actually gonna attempt to re-break the record, but I guess they told them don't let me through the production door again. Like, we can't have people do that.
Was this a different day, or was this the same day?
No, this was a different day. This was
okay.
Yeah, but I was gonna attempt to re-break it, but I guess they told them, they're like, yo, like we can't have people going through that door. So, and I understand that, like, yeah, I'm not anybody special. But yeah, I think I thought of I'm pretty sure I thought of the idea the night before. Like, I was just up and I was excited to go to Universal. I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna do this, and I wanted to do it because I love this ride so much. And at this point, I didn't know about the contract they have with Spielberg, so I thought, well, ET's days are gonna be numbered soon, because there was already rumors flying around that they were gonna replace it with Super Mario. And I was like, I want to do something big to kind of show Universal, like, we care about this ride, even though nobody goes on it anymore. But we care about this ride, and we want it to stay here. And I was just I was commenting.
But is that why you feel like it's because it's in the back of the park in that kids area that people just kind of don't even go in that area anymore?
That's a possibility. That's definitely one of the factors of it. But also, too, you got to understand the movie came out like 30 something years ago. It has
Yeah,
no, it doesn't have, it's a standalone movie. It doesn't have a sequel. So, a
right.
lot of, it's not like Fast and Furious that the series is still going on. They have the Minions, the Mummy, like even the Mummy, they did the remake with Tom Cruise not too long ago. So, it's not like a big franchise that a lot of people recognize, so people are just like, I don't really want to go on ET. Or like I said, The Simpsons, it's right next to it. The Simpsons is like a few steps away from it. So I think that's another reason too, is because, it's such an old franchise that people just, they don't associate with it anymore as much as, the other stuff in the park. But also too, it's in the back corner as well, and not a lot of people go back there.
You doing this ride, was it because you wanted to bring that publicity to the ride? You feel like, hey, if I put this on YouTube, maybe somebody from a news organization will see it, maybe Steven Spielberg will see it, and maybe Universal will even kind of recognize and say, wow, somebody came to our parks, they did something cool. What were you trying to get to with doing that?
I mean, I didn't go into it like, saying, oh, I'm gonna, do this for publicity or anything. I just care about the ride.
Mhm.
And it's funny you say Spielberg, mentioned Spielberg. I actually sent him a letter with a USB with the video, and it had been like a year since I sent the letter. And that same week, I was like, you know what, like, I let's give up on that. He's not going to respond. Like, he's Steven Spielberg. He probably gets mountains of fan mail every day. And then one morning, my boss, I also coach basketball over here in Miami. My boss is
Good.
like, well, you got to get up early because we have to pass out flyers to advertise the league. And I
Yeah.
check in the mailbox, and the first thing I see in the mailbox is an envelope with my name on it, and on the top left corner is the Amblin logo. And
Mm.
I lost it. I completely lost it. And I opened up the letter, and it said, Steven right now can't get to you because he's filming West Side Story out in New York, but your USB with your ET videos is on his desk and is waiting for him to come back. And I go to my boss. I'm like, you know what it is that one of my videos is sitting on Steven Spielberg's desk, just waiting for him to come back from New York to be watched. I was the happiest man in the world. I was like, wow. And the fact that they actually got back to me was insane. And Universal didn't really recognize it. I did hear that in Hollywood, somebody rode Jurassic Park 80 times before it closed, and they did the revamps, and then at the end proposed. They recognized that. Like, I saw Universal even posted an article about it. A few people from Universal got back to me on Twitter. Their Twitter page responded to it. Who else was it? One of the head of creatives, I forgot his name. I can't think of his name right now. Michael Aiello, I think his name is, something like that. I'm sorry if I butchered his name, but he gave me a big thumbs up. James Keaton, the guy that plays Jack the Clown from Halloween Horror Nights. So a few people, definitely, but Universal, the company, in fact, I tried to reach out to them and be like, look, like, I did this. I don't know if you guys saw, and they didn't really care for it that much. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm hoping they saw it, but they didn't really. I wasn't expecting them to give me like a lifetime pass to Universal for that, but no, the Universal never really, besides their Twitter page, they never really like acknowledged it or anything like that.
When you did pass the 56, got to that 56, how did it feel? Was it surreal when you walked in there that last time, got on the ride, rode it, you were excited, then you got off, and everybody, I saw some people in the video clapped. You talked to quite a few people after you passed it. So can you talk about that last time and how the people on the ride that worked there really helped you, get up to 56?
Well, in my opinion, I think that in terms of like guest services and stuff like that, the team at the ET Adventure is the best team in the park. Like, they're super nice. I've met a few friends. I have a few friends from there. That I've just talking, like, we just became friends and stuff. There's the best They're the best team in all of Universal. And they were really helpful. Like, they were really supportive of it. You know, they never once told me, you know, hey, like, you know, you can't do, well, obviously if I was doing something wrong, they would tell me I can't do this, but never once did they tell me, hey, you can't do this or anything like that. They were always super supportive. And they still are, like, you know, well, when I went to re-break the record, when I told you, they had the ride backed up. Like, they were running, instead of 2 tracks, they were running the 1 track. This was like back in February of last year. And I tried to re-break the record, and they told me, they're like, hey, you know, since we're backed up and, you know, the ride's like at 45 minutes, so we love you, but we can't have you do that.
Yeah.
But I understood. I was like, all right, yeah, that's fine. You guys are, you know, it's a different situation now. But they were always super supportive of me. And like I said, I've met quite a few friends that's used to work at ET Adventure. They don't work now, but yeah, they were always supportive. And every time I go there, some of them still recognize me. In fact, some of the new hires at ET, like, I would have the camera and stuff, and they're like, we know we don't know you personally, but we've heard stories about you, so we know who you are. And it just makes me laugh every time. But they're a really good group of people, and, you know, I always love going back to them. It's like a second home. It's like a second home.
Why do you feel like we need to keep ET from closing down at Universal Studios Orlando?
Well, to quote Richard Dreyfuss when he wrote the Hollywood version of the ride, E.T.'s like the Wizard of Oz. It's a timeless story. And also, too, and this is just my personal opinion, whenever you have, like, whether it be a company or a theme park or whatever it is, you need to have something to kind of remember where you came from. And E.T., I call it the Last Samurai because it's the last original ride. And also, too, a lot of these rides now are becoming really, really, and this is just a you know, a pet peeve of mine. A lot of these rides are relying heavily on 3D screens. And my personal opinion, I don't like 3D screens. I get it. They're easier to maintain, but I'm just not, I do not like them. I'd rather see, you know, animatronic and, you know, the physical sets, like, you know, constructing like sets out of, you know, foam or whatever it is they constructed the ET set out of. And, you know, I just do not like those 3D rides. And that's I think that's the only ride at Universal that still has animatronics. I know the Kong over and Under the Adventure and Jurassic Park, they have animatronics and stuff like that too. But I'm pretty sure, let me think. Well, the Mummy, besides the Mummy, like, that's one of those rides that still has animatronic physical sets. And sure, they're broken and they're not as working as intended, but it's a timeless story, and it's just one of those rides. Like, I think people would be more amazed seeing a physical set than just, you know, putting on some glasses and looking at a 3D screen. Because I feel like I'm just watching a 3D movie when I go on one of those rides. Like Fast and Furious, I love the franchise.
Well, I definitely want to get into that in a minute. When you used to go to Universal, you used to think of it as their trademark, ride the movies. And you go in there and know that you would be able to ride classics, such as all the movies that I named. Now there's like all these movies, a lot of them do have screens. A lot of them don't have a lot of thought, I feel like, that have been put into them. So where do you feel they went wrong? Did they try to compete with Disney too hard and putting all these stupid things in? Or do you feel like they just don't have the best creative people at Universal? You know, I'm not saying that they should have kept all those old attractions, but some of them were classics and were good, and they did draw a lot of people. So what do you think about all this?
Where I feel that they went wrong for me was when they announced that Jaws was shutting down. I lost it. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, Jaws, really? And sure, they put in the second phase of Harry Potter, which is good. I'm not gonna deny it. I love Diagon Alley. But I don't know. I don't know where exactly. I mean, for a lot of people, where they went wrong was Fast and Furious, because that was all-time low for them, because everybody expected, you know, Fast and Furious. Now you have a lot more space, and you shut down Beetlejuice and Earthquake. massive sound stages. So, you know, we're expecting something big, and it was literally a copy paste of the backlot tour, which doesn't work as a standalone attraction because, you know, on the backlot tour, it's cool because, hey, you get a little pit stop. I've been on the backlot tour. You get a little pit stop from all the sets, and then, you know, the ending is Fast and Furious, and it's super cool. But as a standalone attraction, we expected more. We expected a, you know, like a test track type of a thing, not, you know, the same thing over and over.
It just seems with the Fast and Furious, Johnny, they just did the cheap way out. Copy
Right.
Hollywood's Fast and Furious. And not only just that, like you said, the ride it's not really a ride. It's just a bunch of screens, and they're 40 feet up in the air. The screens are 40 feet long, rather. And you're on a bus, and you just like, it doesn't really even move. It's just like the screen. It's just like, I believe they should have just kept Earthquake, or even if they wanted to change Earthquake around a little bit, they could have did something to the effect of that. I mean, it's a disaster. All that money down the drain, and that's going to be there for at least 10 some odd years now.
I think I'll tell you where exactly they went wrong. They tried to make Universal Orlando the same as Universal Hollywood because they wanted both things to have the same exact stuff. So I think that's where they went wrong. They're like, well, you know, if Hollywood has Fast and Furious, you know, we're gonna make the exact same thing in Orlando. If, you know, Hollywood has that 3D Kong, which I've been on that version, the 3D Kong in the soundstage, it's a scaled down version of the Skull Island one. I love Skull Island Reign of Kong because it has the animatronic at the end. So I think where they went wrong was they tried to make both parks the exact same. But it's like, no, like one park is the main draw of Hollywood is the backlot tour because, you know, you want to see the sets, you want to see all the props. The main draw of Orlando is a theme park. Like you want to go there, you know, to ride the roller coasters and all of that. And Hollywood just doesn't have that draw because number one, it's on the side of a mountain, so your space is limited. And number two, most people go for the backlot tour. So I think that's where they went wrong. It's just they try to make both parks the same, and it's not happening because they're two different worlds.
And I think that's where Disney, and I'm not trying to be biased for Disney, but I think that's where they got it right. Where, you know, the same thing, there's a lot of the same things in Disney World as there is in Disneyland, but there's quite a few different things. So they say, hey, you got to go to Disneyland to experience it because you're not going to experience that at Disney World. Same thing with Shanghai and all the other Disney parks. There's different things. So you have to go there, pay the money, and check it out. Universal screwed that up, and that's why I feel like, you know, they're in trouble. With some people, you know, and I think people are going to get fed up and stop going because they got rid of a lot of those classic rides. And not only just that, they put in these stupid rides such as Fast and Furious, where you took over two big attractions in all that area, as you stated, for what? For a bunch of screens.
I mean, that's the reason I'm like in a few months, I'm going to California. I want to go to Disneyland because I want to ride that Indiana Jones ride. I've seen videos of it, and it's mind-blowing. I'm like, I want to do this, but they don't want to bring it over here. And there's so many differences. Like I told my girlfriend, she lives over there in California. It's like, yes, we've been on the Mummy over there. Yeah, that it's nothing compared to the one over here. Like the one over here, obviously because it's a bigger soundstage, it's a whole nother story. It's more intense, you know, it's longer, you know. Like the one over there, they used the old ET soundstage, which didn't have. It was a big soundstage, but when you're talking comparing to the Kong one in Orlando, it's not that big. So, you know, I just feel like that's where they went wrong. And, you know, obviously we have Star Wars Land here, and, you know, I told her, I'm like, I kind of told her the differences in Disney. We were talking about this the other night. It's like, you know, you have Indiana Jones, but we have Everest, and we have Avatar, and we have all this other stuff. But, you know, like I said, like we were saying, yeah, they should have differences. Like you have to go here and then you have to go here. It
Right.
shouldn't be the same. But I feel like that's where they messed up. Yeah, and I think that's where Disney kind of, in terms of the classics, I think that's where Disney has the edge because yes, you have Star Wars Land, you have, you know, all the new stuff, Avatar that Disney's doing, but you still have Pirates of the Caribbean. You still have Peter Pan's Flight. You still have Snow White. You still have the original Star Tours. Like they didn't like tear that down to add the new land. You still have the original Star Tours. But again, Disney has more room. They have a lot more space. I mean, now with the third park opening up, let's see, but they have a lot more room. But that's where I feel that Disney has the edge over, you know, the classic attractions. They keep theirs, and they, you know, they remodel them every so often. Like, I wouldn't be opposed. I know Spielberg would be opposed to it, but I wouldn't be opposed if they were to enhance ET. You know, refurb, like an actual refurb, not just, you know, a coat of paint over here and dust this off over here, like an actual like refurb, like, you know, like I said, maybe add a few screens to enhance it, not to destroy the ride experience, but to enhance it. Now, I know a lot of people would be like, well, you know, we want to keep the original ride. I mean, that's all fine and dandy, but, you know, they add, when Pirates of the Caribbean came out, the one with Johnny Depp, then they add a Johnny Depp animatronic at the end of the Pirates of the Caribbean to tie in with the movie.
Right.
I feel like they should do something like that. Like, they should keep them up to date, but still keeping that, you know, the classic feel of it. And that's, you know, Universal is not going to do that because, you know, Spielberg has that contract that, you know, it doesn't let him close it. So they're like, well, if we're going to be stuck with ET, that's fine, but we're not going to throw money in there to fix
Well,
it.
Johnny, I was told that Spielberg, not only does he have the contract, if they try to close that ride, he's going to make sure they close Jurassic Park too. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
His thing is, if you close down ET, anything associated with my name on it, and it's a lot more than Jurassic Park. It's Jurassic Park. It's Transformers, because he's actually he's credited as a producer for that ride. So it's Transformers, it's Jurassic Park, it's Shrek,
Wow.
because he owns DreamWorks. He Amblin DreamWorks. He owns that. So it's a lot more than just Jurassic Park. Like, I think half of Universal will close if that happens. So they're
But
kind of
was that because they closed down the one in Japan and Hollywood without them telling him?
They've done a lot of things to tee off Spielberg. That when the one in Hollywood closed, they didn't tell him about it, and he found out himself. And then they closed. He's like, okay, the one in Japan and Orlando has to stay open. And then the one in Japan closed. They didn't tell him about that either. So then,
Wow.
like, rumors started flying, like 2013, that the one in Orlando was closed. That's when he stepped in. But one of the big things that Universal, and this is not Universal as a theme park, I guess it's more Universal as like the backlot. I don't know if you've heard the story. They had the original orca from Jaws in the backlot.
Yeah.
So at Jaws scene.
Right.
And he would go in every so often and, you know, kind of get over his PTSD filming that movie. And he would get in the boat and he would shake and stuff like that. And like 4 or 5 years went by and he hadn't seen the boat. And he goes into the backlot and the boat's gone. And he goes to Sid Sheinberg, the head of the studio at the time. He's like, where's the boat? Where's the orca? And he's like, I don't know. Like, isn't it supposed to be there? He's like, no, it's not there. So he calls, like, I guess, I don't know if it was a maintenance worker or somebody that works in the backlot. And he's like, where's the orca? He's like, the orca? That boat that was in the backlot? He's like, yeah, the original orca that was used to film Jaws. He's like, oh, that boat, it was all dry rot and it had termites. We took a bunch of chainsaws and axes. We chopped it up and sold it for lumber. And Spielberg was quoted as saying, Lord, forgive me for what I said to that man on the phone that day. Wow. He's like, I went nuts. And I would too. That's an iconic piece of film history. That's, you know, the Jaws.
Well, I was told that Jaws closed down in Orlando, not only for Diagon Alley, but also they were paying so much money for that fuel, which is fine then. You know what? They could have kept Jaws. They could have cut that scene out, and they could have got rid of the fuel scene and had it up a different way. That's my take on that is.
It wasn't just the fuel. Yes, that was a part of it, but also too, it was maintaining the animatronics and how they were unreliable since it started.
Yeah,
you know that. And there was also it would cost them $1 million every year to drain and clean the lagoon. Every single year was $1 million. So obviously they had to maintain it. They had to keep it clean.
the day that before you got sick at Universal.
This was probably the only time I didn't have fun at Universal, and that's saying something. And it wasn't because of, you know, the environment. It was because of me. I had been suffering for a good month or something, just weird health stuff. I would get like white spots in my eyes, and, you know, I was losing my appetite and stuff like that, and we didn't know what was going on. And then like, I think it was a week before I went to Universal, I was at the park that I coach and I was playing basketball, and my short-term memory just went to crap. Like I lost my short-term memory. Like I was repeating things over and over, and my friends were like, dude, you told me that 4 times. Like, what are you doing? Stop. And so, but I wanted to go in March for my birthday to Universal, because in February I had a busy month, so I couldn't make it out of February, so I wanted to go in March. And so I went to a neurologist, and they're like, yeah, it's probably just migraines that you're suffering. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I went to Universal, and like the night before I went to Universal, I contacted my friend who, she works at Universal, but she went with me that day because we always hang out when I go up there. And we were actually supposed to go clubbing at some of the lounges that they have over there. And I felt like, when you get gases in your stomach, I felt that in my chest. Like instead of down here, it was up here. And you'll find out what it was. So I called her the night before. I'm like, hey, like, I'm not feeling that hot. Like when I'm over there tomorrow, like keep an eye on me, please. Cause I just feel like either I thought it was the stomach virus. So I'm like, I'm something's wrong here. So she's like, yeah, I got you. I'll keep an eye on you. So I went, and, I rode ET multiple times like I usually do. And, like I said, I don't even remember half that trip, because I just felt so bad. And we rode, I think did we ride the Mummy? I'm not sure, but we rode a few things, and then we went to Islands, and I rode Hagrid's, and I rode a few other things. And by the end of the night, I just felt out. Like she went to go get her car because I had bought something big from the prop store, and I had to pick it up at package pickup, and I couldn't even stand. I literally looked dead. She brought one of her friends to help out carry that thing out of the park, and like he looked at her and he's like, dude, is he okay? Because he looks like he's about to die. And I was like a zombie almost. And so the next day I still had to go to Hollywood Studios and ride, because I wanted to go to the new Star Wars land. And I was just, the next day, like I felt like super sick, and, I felt tired. And like, I'll tell you, how you had to get the boarding pass for Star Wars, for the new one, The Rise of the Resistance. It was cold, and I felt so like tired. I sat in a bathroom stall, and I was just like waiting for 7 a.m. to get the ticket. But I kept fading in and out. Like I kept going, like fading in and out, in and out, in and out. And I finally got the boarding pass, and I rode the ride. Like I toughed it out, like because I had to. I mean, I wasn't just gonna be like, forget it, let's go home. So I toughed it out, and then, then after that, waiting for the boarding pass, after I rode, after waiting to be called for the boarding pass, I was sitting in front of the Star Tours building. The same thing, fading in and out, like if you were like extremely tired, and I was just falling asleep. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna ride Star Wars and Minnie and Mickey Runaway Railway and get the hell out of here, because I don't know what the hell's going on with me, because this isn't normal. And so, I rode Minnie and Mickey Runaway Railway, and then I just went home. And also the whole time at Universal, I couldn't even stand in the lines. Like I had to sit down. Like people behind me were like getting pissed because it's like, dude, stop sitting down. But it's like I couldn't even stand. So I went home, or I went to the hotel, and then I had a bowl of soup, and like 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes after I had the bowl of soup, I puked it out. And my parents were like, okay, that's it. We're not staying another day here. Let's go home. So we went home, and the next day we went to the hospital, and they're like, okay, we need to do blood work on you to see what's going on. Like we went to the urgent care, but they're like, we need to take you to the main hospital. So I thought, I'm like, man, what did I eat? I had a really bad stomach flu. So they did blood work in the hospital, and it shocked all of us. They said your normal white blood cell count should be I think it was like 14 or something. You're at 70. And what had happened was my eosinophils, which is like the white blood cells, had elevated, and I ended up with a blood clot in my heart. And the whole time I was at Universal, I was literally dying. And they told me that, in fact, I was the cardiologist this week, and he told me, he's like, had you gotten here 3 days later, you probably would have been dead. It was that bad. And I ended up in the hospital for 2 weeks. And I think, like, yeah, in hindsight, the record was cool, but I think the one that I will hold most dear in my heart is I was riding ET with a blood clot in my heart. That nobody will ever do, and it's not something that, you know. Well, I mean, I jokingly told the cardiologist I was at Hollywood Studios. If I would have ridden Tower of Terror, I would have died. I would have died. The whole
Yeah.
going up and down with a clot in your heart, that clot can move, and you know. And then what he told me was the memory loss that I was been suffering weeks before. That wasn't a migraine. That was a blood clot traveling, and you were having mini strokes, and you didn't even
Wow.
notice. And yeah, and so like I don't know, you guys know that Jordan had the flu game. That was my flu game. Like going to Universal and Disney, even though it was something extremely dangerous, but we didn't really know how bad it had gotten at that point. But
Right.
yeah, like that was the only time I didn't have fun at Universal. But it wasn't because of me. It was just because I was so I was literally just at that point almost a walking corpse. And you
Yeah.
know, like I said, I toughed it out, and you know, I got to ride most of my favorite rides, but it was hell. It was really hell. It was bad. So the record is cool, but you know, I'll tell people try riding ET with a blood clot in your heart. See how that turns out for you. But
That's
yeah,
a
no, that
crazy story. Yeah.
it,
So as we finish the interview, can you tell people where they can find more about you on your YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it may be, Johnny?
You can find me on YouTube at Johnny Awesome. It's the guy wearing the sports jersey with the rings and the basketball. My Twitter is Johnny Awesome V1, and my Instagram is Johnny Awesome IG. I'm always posting ET stuff and, you know, Universal stuff and sports stuff as well. I love sports.